with the change to no fault in 1973, I know that one of the things that became a part of that was there was a catastrophic claims fund that every person,
so glad you brought this up.
Every person paid money into this fund. And if you got a lifelong injury that's going to require just massive amounts of medical attention, like let's suppose you had a brain injury that was never going to get better, and it's going to put you in a hospital bed for the rest of your life. Someone's got to pay for that. And so they had a catastrophic claims fund that everyone put money into to pay those kinds of claims. And over time, people were complaining about the high cost of insurance. And I think that the insurance companies kind of pointed that catastrophic claims fund and said, well, that's kind of the problem. I don't know if it's a problem or not, but I do believe that that's one of the big changes in the recent no-fault updates, correct? That they, in essence, modified what's going to happen with those catastrophic claims?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's a very interesting issue. Can I go back a little bit to when it was created? So no fault was passed in 73. And the idea when the way the law wrote at the time, the way the law read at the time was, under no fault, if you're injured in a car accident, you are entitled to, it didn't say unlimited, but essentially it was unlimited medical benefits to cover all of your accident-related costs so long as they're reasonably necessary to your care, recovery, or rehabilitation from the accident. And so, so long as bills were reasonably necessary, insurance companies were on the hook to pay. And, insurance companies, they bill, they collect premiums, they amass, huge investments, huge war chests. They set aside reserves when claims come in. Well, and sorry, I was going to be a little cynical there. So what happens about 5 years down the road, the insurance companies decide that they're really not all that thrilled about this setup. They're like, whoa, we're having to pay a lot of money here. I mean, these serious injury cases, that costs a lot of money. We really don't like paying that much money. We don't want to pay for a lifetime worth of medical care for these people. We think somebody else should do it. In comes the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. So they're complaining about having to pay out on the policies that they took people's hard-earned money for the premiums. And instead of somebody saying, put your big kid's pants on and take care of the business that you voluntarily entered into, they said, no. It's okay. We're going to create this. So they created the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. And what that does is, as you described, they collect money and they keep it in a fund, and it's used exclusively to pay for the medical care for catastrophically injured car accident victims. But the two important things to know are, one, all the funding that goes into the Catastrophic Claims Fund comes from drivers. We as drivers in Michigan fund it. Nobody else does. The insurance companies, they don't do it. When you get your insurance bill, if you're in Detroit, that $5,000 bill that you get, maybe anywhere from, in recent times, it could be anywhere from $100 or $200 of that bill, that's all, goes to the Catastrophic Claims Fund. And that is what entitles you to lifetime medical care if you're in a catastrophic injury, in a catastrophic accident, and your bills reach to a certain level, because there's a retention level for insurance companies versus the catastrophic claims. If your medical bills get up to, just say like $500,000, that's kind of where we're at right now. Maybe it's a little higher. If they get up to $500,000, the insurance company wipes their hands and they send the case over to the catastrophic claims, and they pay from there on out. So for that $100 or $200 that is tacked onto your auto insurance bill, you're potentially, you are, and you're not potentially, you're paying for coverage in the event that tragedy strikes in your life. And so the insurance companies, I think, there's nobody that really speaks for the MCCA, for the Catastrophic Claims Fund. And so I think they conveniently vilify the MCCA and say, oh, well, it's their fault that they're charging all this money. No, the lion's share of your auto insurance bill is your auto insurance.
And one thing I wanted to ask, and this is what people don't understand, is that if you are in an accident and the insurance company's going to pay your medical bills, we say, oh, that's fine. They get a bill, they pay it. But we don't think about those catastrophic claims, and no one wants to, because you don't want to think about it unless it happens to you, and you hope it doesn't happen to you. But I've read from Lawyers Weekly and other trade journals and magazines and articles, newspapers for lawyers, about some of the horrific injuries that people suffer and how costly they can be. And can you give me like a prototypical or like an example of what kind of injury we're talking about where somebody couldn't possibly afford to pay for the coverage otherwise without that claims fund being there? In other words, what kind of money are we talking about for somebody who's got the head injury I described and is in a hospital bed for the rest of their life? What kind of dollars are we talking about there?
We're talking huge dollars. For somebody that suffers a catastrophic injury, which generally speaking, would be a traumatic brain injury of some kind or a spinal cord injury that leaves them paralyzed. It's people that can no longer return to their normal life. They can't go back to work. They can't live independently. They can't take care of themselves. The injuries that they've suffered as a result of the crash renders their life completely changed. And the level of care that's required, it starts with going to an emergency room. It may involve surgeries. It involves seemingly unending rehabilitation, treatment facilities, residential care sometimes, in-home, around-the-clock care, respirators, nurses, doctors, surgeons, therapists, you name it. And for these people, for people who have to survive an injury like this, the bills can be $500,000, $1 million, more than that. Some people tragically are in a situation where they can't walk anymore. They're confined to a wheelchair. That requires, and to the extent that they're able to get out and about with the assistance of a wheelchair, they frequently have to have their vehicles modified so they can still drive them, or they need to get a new vehicle that can accommodate their wheelchair. A lot of them have to have their home modified so that they can get about, or they have to find new housing. All those costs are involved in this. The costs are so astronomical, it boggles the mind. And these numbers are not the kind of numbers that any private individual on any consistent basis could ever imagine paying.
And I know that one of the things that people have to stop to think about is that these accidents will happen. They will happen. We don't have self-driving smart cars yet that avoid accidents entirely.
No.
So if these accidents happen and these medical costs get incurred, they're going to get paid one way or the other. One way is to have them paid by the Catastrophic Claims Fund in the insurance pool. Or the other way is that when your insurance runs out and your money runs out and you go bankrupt, the government picks it up. So people who think that by eliminating the catastrophic... Pardon me?
Or you end up going without. Because if you run out of no-fault coverage and you have to shift over to your health insurance, there's a ton of stuff that you need in a catastrophic situation that your health insurance is not going to cover. And if you're catastrophically injured, you're not going to be able to keep your job for very long because you can't. There's a good chance you can't return to work. So your private health insurance through your job, that disappears. And then if you have to turn to Medicaid or Medicare, there's a host of things that those don't cover either. And or maybe you just don't have anybody that can help you navigate through this process, and you don't even get to any of those second, third, or fourth, plan B, C, or D. Yeah. Maybe you just when no fault runs out, it runs out, and then you have nothing.
And I've got friends who do bankruptcy law, and the number of people who are in bankruptcy from medical bills is shocking. And It's only going to get worse if they've eliminated the catastrophic claims here.